On the day of your naturalization interview, the immigration officer assigned to you will usually base the naturalization questions coming from your responses on your N-400 form, which is also known as the application for naturalization. The USCIS officer could also ask questions in connection with your A file. What is an A file? An alien file, or A file, is an individual file identified by the subject's alien registration number, which is also known as an A number. An A number is a unique personal identifier assigned to a non-citizen. In this practice video, you will not be asked questions coming from the civics test. This video guide was created so that you will be able to familiarize with the questions that are typically asked by a USCIS officer during the Naturalization Citizenship interview. This is only a sample of possible citizenship interview questions. Let's start to practice.
Do you want to ask something before we start? Let's start the interview. What's the main reason why you want to become a US citizen? Do you think that you're eligible to become an American citizen? What's your current legal name? Have you ever used any other names? Do you want me to change your name? Can you spell your name? Would you like this name on your naturalization certificate? Can you tell me your social security number? What's the date of your permanent residency? Tell me your date of birth. Can you say your country of birth? What's your country of nationality? Any accommodations requested because of a disability? What's your home address now? Where else have you lived in the past 5 years? Have you lived in any other addresses in the past 5 years? It's the same address since you submitted your application, correct? So there's no change of address after submitting your N-400 application form? How long have you lived with this home address? What's your previous home address? We may communicate with you through your phone. Say the number, please. What's the citizenship and nationality of your parents? Tell me your height. What's your weight? What's your eye color? Your hair color? What do you do for a living? What kind of work do you do? What company do you work for? Where do you work? How long have you worked in your previous job? How long have you been working in your present job? What can you say about working here in the US? Tell me how long you were unemployed. What was your job before? Why did you leave your work? Where else have you worked in the past 5 years? Where else have you worked in the past 3 years? How long were you unemployed? What's the reason for it? Who do you work for? How long did you work there? Have you ever attended school here in the US? Can you tell me about these classes? What's the name of the school? Have you taken trips abroad during the last 5 years? Any additional trips abroad that I can add here to your file? Have you taken any trips abroad during the last 3 years? How many times have you left the US since becoming a permanent resident? How many trips abroad have you taken? Tell me the total days of your travels. Did any of your travels last 6 months or longer? Can you remember your last trip outside of the US? Do you remember the day and month you returned to the US? What countries have you visited? Tell me the people whom you visited. What's the purpose of your trips abroad? What's the reason for your travels? What is your current marital status? How many times have you been married? What's your spouse's name? What's your wife's name? What's your husband's name? Do you have any children or stepchildren? Do they live with you? Is this child living with you? Is your child your biological child, adopted child, or stepchild? Are your children your biological children, adopted children, or stepchildren? Have you submitted all the required documents for your application? Let's proceed to the next part. So you never told anyone that you're an American citizen, correct? Have you informed anybody that you're a US citizen? Have you ever registered to vote in any US election? Have you ever registered to vote in any federal, state, or local US election? Have you ever voted in any US election? Have you ever voted in any federal, state, or local election in the United States? Do you have any title of nobility in a foreign country? Do you have any hereditary title in a foreign country? Have you ever been declared legally incompetent? Have you ever been confined to a mental institution? Do you file your taxes each year? Did you owe taxes in the past years? Any proof that you've paid for it? Do you owe any overdue federal, state, or local taxes? Did you bring your tax returns for the past 5 years? Can I see those documents? Have you called yourself a non-US resident on your tax returns since you became a lawful permanent resident? Have you filed your tax returns as a non-US resident since you became a green card holder? Have you ever been a member of any organization, club, society, foundation, or similar groups in the US? Have you ever been confined to a mental institution? Have you ever been declared legally incompetent? Have you ever been a member of a communist party? Have you ever been a member of a totalitarian party? Have you ever been a member of a terrorist organization? Have you ever advocated the overthrow of any government by either force or violence? Have you ever been arrested or committed a crime? Have you persecuted any person because of race, religion, political opinion, or national origin? Were you associated with the Nazi government of Germany? Have you ever been a member of any of these, like the paramilitary or self-defense unit, vigilante unit, extermination camp, citizen unit, labor camp, or transit camp? Have you ever been involved in genocide, torture, killing, not letting someone practice a religion, and forcing someone in sexual relations? Did you ever sell or provide weapons to any person? Did you ever receive military or weapons training? Did you ever conscript anyone under 15 years old to serve an armed force? Have you ever attempted to commit a crime or offense for which you were not arrested? Have you ever been arrested, cited, or detained by any law enforcement officer? Have you ever been placed in an alternative sentencing or rehabilitation program? Have you ever received a suspended sentence, been placed on probation, or been paroled? Have you ever been in jail or prison? Have you ever married someone to get an immigration benefit? Have you ever served in the U.S. Armed Forces? Have you ever been excluded, removed, or deported from the United States? Have you ever been a prostitute or persuaded someone for prostitution? Have you ever sold illegal drugs or narcotics? Have you ever gambled illegally? Have you ever helped anybody enter the U.S. illegally? Have you ever failed to support your dependents? Have you ever given false information to any U.S. official while applying for a passport or an immigration benefit? Have you ever lied to any government official to gain entry into the U.S.? Are you going to support the Constitution and form of government of the U.S.? Have you understood the full oath of allegiance to the U.S.? Are you ready to take the full oath of allegiance to the U.S.? Are you going to bear arms in the U.S. Army? Are you willing to perform non-combatant services in the U.S. Armed Forces? Will you work of national importance under civilian direction? Are you willing to help the government during a national emergency? Do you promise that everything you said is true? Is there anything I missed in your application that needs to be updated? Please take a look at the application in front of you to make sure that all the information is correct. If there's nothing wrong, please sign it.
You could only be asked some of these questions during your naturalization interview, since every interview is different and unique. If you have any questions, please send us a message below, and we will try to answer them. You can join our Facebook support group for applicants applying for US citizenship. You can see the link below this video.